This is the Mandalorian's N-1 Starfighter, and today we're going to be taking this ship and turning it into his iconic Razor Crest. But before we dive into today's build, I just want to thank you guys for all the interaction and the suggestions that I got over on my community post where I asked for your suggestions on what I should do using 2 copies of the Ambush on Ferrix. And you guys gave me a ton of amazing suggestions that we can hopefully work through over time. But by a landslide, the most popular suggestion was to take 2 of these ships and turn it into a larger gunship. So after this video, I'm going to get cracking on that, and hopefully we'll see the full video on that build next week. And if you'd like to be a part of these community posts where I ask for your suggestions and your ideas, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss out on those posts. But now back to today's build with the N-1. Now I've actually already made 2 videos over the N-1 Starfighter. In the past, I took the N-1 Starfighter and combined it with the Mandalorian's helmet set to give this ship its much needed chrome. And then I took the leftover parts from that helmet to make a really sleek stand to display the N-1. And you can of course find both those videos linked down below. But for this video, I've got something a little bit different. Today we're going to be taking a look at a modified version of LEGO Ohio's N-1 Starfighter alternate build that I'm calling the Razor Crest Starfighter. This Razor Crest Starfighter has quite a bit of lore behind it as to how it came to be and how it was created, but I'll save that for the end of the video and I'll just give you a few small details now. This Razor Crest Starfighter was meant to resemble Din Djarin's larger iconic Razor Crest transport that he used during his time with Grogu the Foundling. The Mandalorians developed this Starfighter to look like his iconic ship because he was such an important figure in their history and their culture at this point, and so they sought to honor him in that larger vessel that he once flew in this new, smaller Starfighter form. But as far as the build goes, as I said, this is a modified version of LEGO Ohio's original alternate build for the N-1 Starfighter. And you can find his full video linked in the description down below where he provides completely free instructions for this N-1 Starfighter alternate build to turn it into the Razor Crest. Now if you follow his instructions, you won't quite get the model that you see before you because this is my own modified design, but it is still heavily based and the entire model is still based on LEGO Ohio's original alternate build. So I just wanted to make it abundantly clear that I didn't design this from the ground up. LEGO Ohio did the heavy lifting and came up with this incredible design, and I've just added and modified my own personal taste on it. Now with that being said, as with all my alternate builds and mods, I am providing instructions for this build through Patreon first and then a free version on YouTube a little bit later. And before anyone says anything, I've talked to LEGO Ohio personally and I've asked for permission on this. I would never proceed making even a free version of my instructions for this build because it's still heavily based on his own version. However, I did reach out to them and they are completely okay with me providing instructions for my own modified version, so long as a free version gets posted later. And as always with all my alternate builds, you'll be able to get it through Patreon first, and then I'll have a video version up in a little bit under 2 weeks. And now, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at this Starfighter starting up front. So looking at the front of this Starfighter, the most obvious thing to go over are these spikes on the bottom. And these spikes aren't just for show, these are actually ion cannons similar to what you see on the Y-Wing. So when the Starfighter's in combat, the pilot can get a lucky shot with the ion cannons and take down the enemy Starfighter shields and then light them up with these dual heavy blasters. And speaking of these dual heavy blasters, on both sides of the Razor Crest we have these rapid fire heavy blaster cannons. I was toying with the build of the blaster for quite a while, but I think I've settled on this as the final design. I decided I wanted this Starfighter to have 2 rapid fire blasters rather than having single slow firing cannons, and I think these small barrels at the front definitely give it that look. You can of course change the blaster build up however you like, and there's a ton of extra pieces so you can certainly customize this area to your heart's content. But this was the final design that I settled on for the rapid fire blasters, and I'm pretty happy with it. Now moving just in between the blasters, you're probably wondering what all these stacks of cylinders are. Now on Mando's left side of the ship, I put this stack of cylinders here just to use up this empty anti-stud and fill up this empty space here. But then on Mando's right side of the ship, I decided to add a little bit of detail and a small little feature on this side. Now ships in Star Wars always seem to have some forward-facing lights so you can light up what's ahead of you or light up the landing zone, but you can never really see them on the exterior of the ship. So using this small binocular piece, I decided that these are 2 lights that sit on the front of the Razor Crest in case the Starfighter needs to light up the area or light up the landing zone. It does give it a bit of an asymmetrical look, but I like to think that just adds a little bit of character to it. But now we can move just between all these stacks of cylinders and the 2 main blasters, and we can take a look at the cockpit. And I gotta say, LEGO Ohio did an amazing job using both of these windscreen pieces to create that Razor Crest cockpit shape. But in order to take a look inside, we're gonna have to open this up, so let's start with folding up the larger rear windscreen and then the smaller dome out front, and then we can take a look at all the extra details that I crammed in here. So we of course have our Mandalorian in the pilot seat with his Foundling Grogu sitting behind him. And I took Mando out so we can get a better look at that, and the angle is a little wonky, but you can see on either side using these small bar pieces, I gave Mando some joysticks so he can control the ship in flight. And then up on the front there, I used that stickered control panel piece that came with the N-1 Starfighter set to give it a little bit of extra detail and give Mando all of his meters and gauges in front of him. And then just next to these joysticks on either side, I built up some armrests using these gray sloping pieces. And then both seats are just built up using a variety of brown pieces to give them a nice comfy look. And even though I have Grogu sitting back there right now, this set does come with BD1, so if you'd like Mando to run with a droid to help him out in combat, you can take out your Foundling and then slot in your favorite little BD droid. And that pretty much covers everything in the cockpit, so with our crew sitting back in, we can go ahead and close up this front windscreen and then the rear one. And then I'd like to take a look at this small bit of detail around the sides of the cockpit here. It's not really detail so much as it is satisfying to see. I just really love the way that these rounded tiles perfectly line up with all these smooth pieces on the side here. And then these gray pieces on the inside also perfectly encapsulate this cockpit area. Maybe it's just me, but I just love how all these pieces line up perfectly with all the colors to perfectly outline the cockpit windscreen here. But following all these smooth pieces towards the rear of the ship, we can take a look at this rear turret that I built into the center. With an extra seat for your Foundling or your droid co-pilot, I think it makes perfect sense to put a rear turret on here that they can control to help cover the backside of the ship in combat. And this rear turret is a very small but effective build, and both barrels technically do move around in that Technic pinhole there, but it's very annoying to line both of them up just perfectly, so I like to slot them both all the way down up against this slope piece on the bottom. And then it's attached to the main body of the ship with just one jumper plate right in the middle there, and then it's perfectly outlined with some of these rounded tiles on the sides and these 1x3 plates. And then just in front of it, I have one of those 2x2 with the pinholes in it upside down for a little bit of greebling. But then as we move out from the turret, we can move up these slope pieces on the side and then get into the two massive engines. And the engines are just made up of a variety of Technic pieces to give them that cylindrical look. On the front here, we made use of that printed tile to give it a nice little intake. And then on the rear side here, we have some light blue translucent pieces to represent the actual thrust that the engine is generating. And then just underneath the engines, very quickly, we'll take a look at the sides of the ship. There's not really much to go over besides the blasters that we already covered. We do have that nice yellow stripe, very similar to the actual Razor Crest with that dark tan or dark yellow on the sides. And then we have some slow pieces on the bottom to transition from the straight sides into the wider top half. And then in this bottom corner here, we just have this big bit of greebling and armor plating. I think on the original model, these were meant to represent some sort of landing gear, but because they weren't actual functional landing gear, I just decided to turn it on its side and make it a small bit of greebling on the side here. But as we move on from this and circle around to the back side of the ship, I unfortunately wasn't able to work in any sort of rear door back here. These inverted slope pieces provide a lot of the structure for the back side of the ship, so removing those would essentially make it fall apart. And maybe one of you guys will get a little bit more creative with the pieces and work something in back here, but I just wasn't able to make it happen. But then as we move on from the knot door, we have a little bit of detail on the back side here using these paddles on these bar pieces. And then on the top side, we just have this 2x4 tile piece with these vented cheese slopes on either side. And then other than that, we've pretty much covered the entire build. And I gotta say, LEGO Ohio did an amazing job with the original model, and I'm really happy with it, and I'm happy that I decided to build it. But I'm even happier with the final product after I tossed on all my mods to better fit my personal taste. But I hope you guys enjoyed this alternate build. As always, I'm going to end up putting the lore in the description because I feel like this video is going to be a little bit longer than I want it to be. So if you want to read the full lore for this Starfighter and how it came to be in my little LEGO Star Wars universe, you can read the description down below. And while you're in the description, make sure you check out LEGO Ohio's original video where he provides a full, completely free instruction video as to how you can make this base Razor Crest model. Now, if you want instructions for my modified version, you can head on over to my Patreon page right now, or I'll have a video version up on YouTube in a little under 2 weeks. And other than that, I just want to give a huge thank you to all my loyal patrons who help make all these videos possible, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the Ambush on Ferrix alternate build that's hopefully coming next week. And then other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.